Hey, welcome to the Team Up Now podcast. Today our guest is Ellie Marin. Ellie is a Melbourne-based entrepreneur, restaurateur, and commercial property investor. So Ellie started her entrepreneurial career with Corn Utopia, which is one of Melbourne's first food trucks, and then moved into Fried Hustle, a burger joint, and Sweetheart's Gelato, which is obviously a gelato joint. But she has also gone into commercial property. And the reason that we wanted to get her on the podcast today is that she's always done things differently. So when Corn Utopia opened, it was one of the first food trucks. And I remember a conversation back then, I'm like, food trucks doesn't really make sense. But it did make sense. And it's a booming part of Melbourne culture now. So welcome to the show, Ellie.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell us the story yourself? Obviously, I've just given a rundown, but I'd love to hear it from your side.
Food trucks. Okay, so I guess I had a job originally, if we're going back to the start, and I worked in, I guess, fashion for a number of years. But as a young person, I worked in lots of different businesses. So I kind of came up from really young, working in fruit shops and hairdressers, sweeping the floors and washing hair, and then selling shoes until eventually I started managing clothes shops and eventually was the operations manager of a clothing label and then another clothing label. So I did that for a long time. And when the last job that I had, I would notice that people would come in every day and they would and ah about a $50 top that was made in Australia, and everyone talks a big game about wanting to buy Australian made, but they would and ah about it and maybe not purchase it. And then they would go across the road to McDonald's and spend more than that on something that doesn't have long-term value at all and is only basically resembling food, I guess. And so from that, and having run so many other types of people's businesses, I guess I just learnt that businesses were just run by normal mum and dad. Anyone could do it. So I ran other people's businesses for them. And I saw lots of different businesses and lots of different sizes of businesses and sides of businesses. And I just decided that was my next step. My background is I did get a fashion degree while I was working full-time, and I worked full-time and I studied full-time. So I wasn't shy about hard work. I've always worked hard. And I guess people would have thought my natural progression would be to open maybe a clothing shop. But because I'd had that experience of seeing how people spend money on food more easily than clothes, even having never worked in food before, I decided that maybe people spent more money more easily in food. So that's why I made the leap into food. But yeah, starting a business was my natural progression from working. I've never really worked in a big business. I only ever worked for small businesses, and that was 15 years ago. And I've been in, or probably more, because I've been in business myself for 15 years. So I knew I wanted to get in food because I thought that was more easy money. But then when I went out to rent a space, and I would ideally like to rent a place in the city because that's where the people are, where the foot traffic is. But unfortunately, I couldn't afford the rent, not only in the city, I couldn't afford it anywhere, not even in the suburbs. So I thought, well, how am I going to do this? I can't afford the cheapest shop in Melbourne in the worst spot. And then I think maybe one day I was like walking, and maybe I walked past the MCG and I saw this old man in a food van outside the footy selling pies or something. And I was like, I wonder how that works. And I did a bit of research, but it was definitely before food trucks had come into the scene in Melbourne. It was like 2010. Obviously now everyone knows what a food truck is, but back then it was literally an old man selling ice cream in a Mr. Whippy van or pies at the footy. And so that's where the idea came. And then I guess I just did some research into where you're allowed to put these vans and how do you buy them. And I worked out that to buy a van was cheaper than the rent for a year. But also that if it didn't work out, you could sell a van, whereas you could never get that rent back. And so I decided I was going to do the food van thing just because it was a cheaper option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got into food trucks.
Wow, very interesting. It's a very interesting transition from doing, the clothing, the fashion, then jumping into the food industry. But yeah, that totally makes sense because food is also like consumable, so people consume it like on a daily basis, and yeah, they tend to spend a lot of money, yeah, with food. I think we have the same trend here in the Philippines as well.
I think it's a mentality. So people feel like I've got to eat. They don't feel like I have to buy the latest whatever to get along, but they can justify spending money on food for any reason.
That's true. I think it's because it's a basic need, so it's like they always have like, they won't
That's
feel
right.
guilty about it. Like
Exactly,
they won't,
exactly.
yeah, they're willing to spend money for that because it's a basic need,
That's
even
right.
though they don't really need it. Like,
Yeah, true. Like they could go to the supermarket. They don't have to spend $20 at the food truck, but they put it all together and they just say, "Well, I've got to eat."
yeah.
Um, I guess so. And then after that, I had to decide what I was going to sell in the food van.
Hmm.
And I decided, I actually went into Google at the time and I said, what food has the highest markup? And the first thing that came up was water. And I was like, well, I can't sell water. And then the next thing was corn. And so I thought, corn, wow. I mean, I like corn. And I just did like the basic ask around of friends and neighbors and people I knew, and everyone liked corn. And we
Hmm.
didn't have anything here that really specialized in corn. So I started with corn, but obviously I realized very quickly that the truck was a bit too big just to have corn. So I Googled what food has corn in it, and it said Mexican food. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of Mexican food in Melbourne. There was like only, I think, Taco Bill, which had like $30 frozen burritos, but there wasn't any like GYG or, you know, Mad Max or anything like that. So I got in at a really good time, and started selling tacos, which are obviously made from corn tortillas. And then it's just grown from there. And that was 15 years ago. I started Corn Utopia 2011 as in a van, and I would spend about 4 days a week at Preston Market and 3 days a week at Berkeley Square. And then if we got like a birthday or a wedding event, we would take it away from those places.
Hmm.
But it didn't take long to realize that I had enough business, even without doing any advertising, to
Hmm.
do multiple vans. And so within the first year, or by the second year, I had two, and then three, and then it just grew from there.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, like when you start, when you started growing, what did you do in terms of support?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, and I think this is true for a lot of small businesses, you rely on, and I did, my partner at the time and my mum, and they kind of helped a little bit for the first few months. But it only took 2 or 3 months to realize, no, this business is much bigger than this, and we're going to need paid help. You
Hmm.
can only rely on your family and friends for so long. So probably within the first couple of months, I hired my first couple of girls.
Hmm.
And at this time, I was very much hands on. So I guess I took the role of manager of the vans, but I still worked on the tools, cooking every day in the vans. But I had a number of other girls who I delegated. Well, it's not so much delegated responsibility. I took the management role, and then they were the traditional employee role. So they would cook, clean, serve, and we would juggle between each other.
Hmm.
Obviously, because we were open 7 days, we had multiple trucks, so we needed staff. I was generally there though for the first few years, more than the first few years. Um, and then as the business has grown, like in the last 5 or 10 years, I hired the manager roles.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't really work in the business, I worked on the
Hmm.
business. So,
Hmm.
and as it stands now, I guess there's me, and then I've got an operations manager, and then beneath the operations manager are three managers. And then beneath the managers are staff, who operate the day to day in house, cooking, cleaning, serving. But yeah, obviously it's 15 years down the track now, so the structure is very different than it was when I began.
Yeah, I can imagine, but it just still blows me away how you transitioned into that. And when you said like, because you don't have a background in food industry, so when you said that you're the ones cooking it, like, so you've learned like, yeah, the food that you are serving. So you need to learn how to do it yourself,
Yeah,
or
I
did you
think
hire somebody straight away to do like the cooking and like
no, I
creating the
didn't.
menu?
But I think that everything that I've done is common sense. Like if people have common sense, and I mean, I definitely cooked at home, and I was in my late 20s when I started Corn Utopia, so I'd been cooking for a number of years, and I had a bit of world experience having worked at so many shops and fruit shops, hairdressers, clothing shops, and I'd been around business. Um, yeah, I just every time the business changed a little bit, it was due to a common sense step. Okay, so we need this now. I need someone to, so first of all, I just needed someone to cook the food.
Mhm.
Then once I was working and cooking the food as well, but I had outgrown the manager's role. Like I felt like I could contribute more to the business from working on the business and in the business. I replaced myself with a manager.
Mhm.
And then once I felt like I'd outgrown being the manager's, like overseeing the operations, where I could get more and um, make the business
Bigger.
scale,
Mhm.
I had to replace myself in that role as well. So I guess it was just like I was at the top, and every time I could do more from being higher, I replaced myself and put someone under me until it
Mhm.
was a bit of a structure.
That is very similar with how Julius and I are doing in Team Up Now as well. So it was just us in the beginning, and then we hired somebody to like to do the lead generation, which I used to do when we started. And then yeah, that's how we progressed. And then we were doing the recruitment and stuff like that as well. And then now we have a recruiter, and then we sort of like just bring people in into the management role. So that
Yeah,
is very
interesting.
very very similar to what you're doing.
Well, great minds think alike.
Yeah, I don't think it will take it doesn't need like a magic to understand the flow. So I think it's also it works best because we also started like from ground up. Like we do the basic task ourselves, and then we learned everything from scratch. And then I think that's easier for us to like delegate and train other people to do the work.
Yeah, I think that if you've done all the roles yourself within the business, you understand the business better and its
Mhm.
requirements. So there's
Yeah.
nothing in the business I couldn't do if I had to. Like if I had to, I haven't for a long time, but if I had to, I know how all the processes, how to cook,
Mhm.
how to clean, how to deal with customers. Um, yeah, and that means if someone goes away for a while, you can easily step in or replace them as long as you know what all the roles do and how they contribute and how they work within the organization.
So, Ali, like, what is your approach on hiring people in terms of like leadership and training and development and that kind of thing? Because I know that you're a very caring person at heart. So, like, how does that come into the way that you treat your people?
I really, really think it's super important who you surround yourself with. So it's probably a controversial opinion, but I need to like the people that I hire,
Yeah,
which
agree.
can get you into trouble, if I'm honest. Um, but I think that it really depends on the role you're hiring for. So with the more with the customer service roles, like say someone who works in a food truck or a restaurant is
Mhm.
fine. I really like it if they've worked in uh, ideally a fast food restaurant is my preference. Like I
Mhm.
love someone from McDonald's or KFC, just
Mhm.
because they know what's expected. But if someone's working
Yep.
in a cafe as well, that's great. But it's actually not essential. More important is the person's work ethic and their desire to learn. because those roles are pretty basic, you can train anyone with the right attitude. It's people with the wrong attitude. It doesn't matter where they've worked previously or how many jobs they've had before. If they don't want to work, they don't want to learn, and they think they know everything, they're not trainable. So for those basic jobs, love it if they've got some experience, but it is definitely not essential. It's more about attitude. With management roles, it is good to have some experience. But what's really important is that you can trust the person. I've definitely had people that I thought I could trust in the past that I learnt that I couldn't. And that's kind of hard to gauge initially. But I genuinely go with my gut feeling on people most of the time. And that serves me really well. And then if it doesn't work out, I've only got myself to blame.
It's really funny what like the McDonald's thing, like even in more corporate roles that I've been in, where we've been looking for customer service people. Obviously, like, you know, when it was when I was working for Tapware brand, and we were looking for people that had bathroom store experience, etc. But if in their prior work history they had McDonald's or like the very highly trained organizations like that, where it's like process, they actually generally were always better employees. And it's really funny to say that because, you know, you think of Macca's as this low-paying job where, you know, it's like kids at a first job type thing, but it actually gives them a big leg up. And I think that, like, you know, they're the types of things that at Team Up Now we really, you know, think about as in terms of like, okay, well, what's the ultimate employee? And I think it's like character, and then just like teachability, and people that have gone through things like McDonald's have great teachability.
Yeah, and it's the foundation.
Sorry, what was that, Ellie?
I think we both actually said the same thing. I think that it's when you start young and you have a good foundation, you can always build on that. And that's what McDonald's gives people.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, for sure. So you touched on that, you know, liking the person is a big thing. Like, has there been times where maybe you've like someone for their personality and they haven't necessarily been the right fit for what you actually wanted from them? And you know, what did you have to do, and like, you know, what are the hard decisions that sometimes business owners have to make in that scenario?
Definitely. I've definitely been in that position. And I think when you have hired a certain amount of people, and I'm not sure what it is, maybe every time you've had 50 staff or 100 staff, it is impossible to have that many people without crossing these kinds of issues or coming across them. And sometimes they arise when you hire a friend or a friend of a friend, where you feel like you want to make it work, or you really like the person, or you know they're having troubles at home and you want to make it work. But that's where you've got to grow. And so when you've got to make these big calls to maybe let go someone you really like, or let go someone who's a friend of the family, it actually takes a really long time. It took me a long time to be able to delegate and to make these decisions. But the only way you can have a business that scales is to be very business centric. So you've got to let go of some of that emotive stuff sometimes and go, okay, look, what's the best for my business? And if that person who is not the good fit had a business themselves, they would understand why you're doing what you're doing. And the surprising thing is that often when you come to these bottlenecks, the person's not surprised. You know what I mean? Like, they're the one that have been calling in sick regularly, or they're the one that haven't been doing what's expected. And you just always have to do it in a business way. So do you have a system at your business where people get a warning? Do you have a do this and you're out policy? Like, if you can refer back to your policies and things like that, that really helps as well. And so don't make it an emotional decision, make it a business decision.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense. And I think for us, that's something that, you know, we've hired really well. Like every staff member that we've got, like, we're happy with. But you know, there's always going to be like tough decisions in the future, like clients that are unhappy with their team members, etc. And I think being able to disconnect the, you know, liking somebody versus the the performance is super important. And my theory on it is that, like, as long as you're empathetic to the other person's situation, like, you're actually doing them a favor. Like, keeping somebody along just because you like them, but they don't have the right skill set or they're not the right thing, long term, it's going to blow up. So we've had times like we've had someone that we had a trusted team member that'd been with us for a long time, and we placed them in a role, and it just wasn't the right role, and we worked it out pretty quickly. It just the fit between them and the client was never going to work. And I think us being open and honest with the situation and trying to look after both sides to get a better outcome for everybody. It was better in the long run with the client, but obviously it's difficult. It wasn't a fun time, but they're the things that you have to do as business owners.
Yeah, and it actually makes you stronger long term. Like, whenever you go through a hard thing, you build that muscle, like you would at the gym, and you're better at it.
Yeah, for sure. So moving track a little bit, like, obviously you started with in the food industry, you started your entrepreneurial journey in the food industry, and you've kind of moved to do other things. Did you want to talk about, like, what else you've been doing since in the last couple of years?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, food is still my main journey. Oh, not journey. Food is still the main thing that I do. I've got 3 food businesses. I spend a lot of time on all of them, and I'm particularly working on scaling Corn Utopia 15 years later, which is very exciting. And we just I just purchased a warehouse that's going to operate out of, which is a big move after having several food trucks in my driveway for some time, which was a choice. I chose to do that. I could have afforded to move them out a long time ago, but I choose not to spend money on things that I don't have to. But yeah, we've made that decision to put it in a warehouse now. It's a warehouse that I purchased and that I'm about to renovate. Yeah, likewise, like you mentioned earlier, I'm very keenly interested in commercial property and have made multiple purchases, mainly in the hospitality space, because that's what I know. Commercial property is a bit different from residential property, and particularly retail commercial property in the hospitality space, because most people are so scared of it. They think that cafes are going to fail and they don't understand it. So for me, who's got a good insight into the hospitality space, I've been able to make some really great acquisitions without too much competition. Like, when you go to purchase a house in Melbourne, you're going to be bidding against 150 people. But often, if I'm buying a cafe, I'm only bidding against myself and no one else wants it. Industrial space is a bit different. It's more popular. Like the warehouse I just bought, that's more of a popular style of real estate. But retail is less popular, but it's not less profitable. So that's been a fun journey, and I keep the food businesses because I love them and that's what I do, but so that I can have the cash flow to keep buying property, I guess.
I think it's such a great way to do it. Like, you've been able to start, building your own empire basically from scratch, and it's been great to see. Obviously, we've known each other for, I think, probably 10 years or so. I was a young accountant.
Longer. If you remember when Corn Utopia started, that was probably 15 years ago now.
15.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation that we had, like, I remember the partner at the accounting firm that I was working at, he kind of like had just gone, "Oh, can you talk to Ellie, because I don't want to have to deal with this type thing." And
she's got a crazy idea.
Yeah, she's got the most mad idea possible. Food in a truck, like, how's that going to work?
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about it. It sounded cool, and I think at that time, like in the States, it had already started to be a thing.
Yeah, that's certainly where I got the idea from, and I continue to this day to look to America, because often they're ahead in these kind of things. And that's why I opened the burger shop about 5 years ago with the fried chicken, because fried chicken just was all over my feed. So it was the food businesses that got me, or allowed me to get into the commercial property space, because when you make money, obviously you need have something to do, unless you have a lavish life, which I definitely don't. Like, a lot of people live above their means and they go on the holidays and buy the amazing houses and cars and handbags, but I just wasn't into that. And so I started to I bought my first cafe, and then it was just a knock-on effect, and I enjoyed doing that so much. And so it's almost cyclical. Like, I got to keep on working and keep on earning more money so I can keep on buying properties, and it goes around and around. And so that's been my joy lately. But just very, very recently, like in the last month or so, I have started a personal brand because I do a lot of education, mainly from listening to podcasts, reading. I probably read a book every week on business, on entrepreneurship and property, and anything that I'm interested in, on psychology. And I guess a lot of people, maybe like yourselves, are talking podcast and they're talking personal brand. So I thought I'd give that a go because I'm not shy of talking, but it's very new. And so I'll see how that goes over the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think that there'll be a lot of people that can learn from you, Ellie, because you have started something from scratch, and you've built this kind of empire around you that in the stuff that interests you. And over the years, you're always coming to me with crazy ideas that sound crazy, and then they're actually great ideas. I think the last one was the tattoo removal. That was one that popped up.
Yep, I actually got that certification. It was less than $1,000 and took a day or something like that. So it's still in the background.
It's so diverse. All these businesses that you're doing, it's crazy to think about.
But everything I've done is really common sense. And I think that there's a misconception that you've got to be the smartest person to start a business. But the truth is, you've just got to be interested and curious and keep going and try really hard and work hard. If you're willing to work for it, I think that any business can succeed if you just stick to the one idea and then keep going with time and keep going with effort and just keep going. Just don't give up. It's about hard work and putting in the reps. It's not necessarily you have to be really intelligent or have any degree or anything like that. It's just working hard and not quitting.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. I think consistency is key. I've tried to do things, as you know, Ellie, where it's these massive highs that you can potentially get, but the lows are so low that it's just it just drops me out. And that's why I love Team Up Now. It's we're building slowly but consistently, and we're starting to see this almost exponential growth, but it's sustainable. And I think that's key to business long term. I think that the things that you've done are sustainable, not just to the environment and around us, but to ourselves as well. And I think that's key.
You guys will probably end up getting a lot out of helping people, because I feel like what you're doing can really help someone. And so if you're playing a part in these other businesses doing really well, there's just something about helping people. You can't put a price on it, but if you help someone and then they do really well, and again, it's a cycle, then they help you, and you create a community and a family.
Yeah, and it's actually, and I think it's on both sides. It's the client side, but it's also the staff side. We see, we talk a lot about minimum wage versus living wage in the Philippines. So at the moment, the minimum wage in the Philippines is $18 AUD per day. And that's what, a lot of workers in Metro Manila would get. And our rates are, significantly more than that in terms of what we pay our staff. And it's just nice to see, when a staff member goes away or they do something, that we've had a hand in that. And, if they're working for a Filipino company on minimum wage, there's no chance they could, or they'd have to work 60 to 80 hours versus a normal 40-hour week to do the same thing. So for us, on both helping our clients grow, but also on helping our staff be able to do things that we can do, I think is really cool. So Ellie, obviously doing the personal branding stuff. So what have you been doing? Where can people find you if they want to follow along on your journey?
Yeah, so mainly on TikTok, but also YouTube Shorts, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I'm posting a combination of things about starting businesses, starting food trucks specifically, but I'm also focusing on mindset and motivation and things like that. And I'm just honing in exactly what my personal brand would be, but there's lots of tidbits, and like some people have been following pretty closely and having a good time following along. And I'm certainly enjoying doing it. I'm still a novice, but I will keep working hard and no doubt get a lot better at it in time.
Yeah, awesome. We'll put all the links and everything in all the Instagram and everything that we put out. So if anyone wants to follow along, just subscribe to Ellie's stuff. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great. Like both Eiza and I, we love to look at things differently, and I think you're someone that does the same. So it's always great to be around that type of energy.
Thanks guys. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See ya.